Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So, as usual, lots of great stuff going on in real estate and things to talk about. And the thing that is going on in the market is basically that we're coming down to, again, being very stable. So that's very exciting, in my opinion. It hasn't gone up or down, really, for the last 3 years in all practical purposes. I'm going to go over the monthly stats here in a little while, but I'm going to start out with what's going on for the week. If you listen to the show consistently, then you know I always start out with this so you can kind of get a feel for everything. There were 284 homes sold last week, and that's down from 361 the week before. Now we're into January, and January is one of the lowest months of sales that there is. And the reason for that is everybody's coming off of the holidays, and usually it takes about 30 days from when a house goes under contract to when it's sold. So we're really looking at what happened 30 days ago. And the month of December, everybody's busy with the holidays, with parties, with extra activities. Kids are out of school for a couple of weeks. And whenever that kind of stuff is happening, then there is always change in people's lives. And so they're not thinking as much about buying houses. And so it's not that people aren't doing it. It's just not as many people are doing it because they're distracted with other things. So the month of January is always a lower month in regards to the number of properties that sell. But it doesn't affect the price. It doesn't affect any of those other things. It just affects the number of properties that sell. So the median price was $429 this week, which was up from last week, which was $420, I believe. And so basically when you're looking at that, that's kind of what the scoop is in regards to that. The number of inventory increased by 86, which is now at 8,003. So again, that is not unnormal at all for this time of the year, because guess what happens when, and this is for January 4th to 10th. So basically when the market, comes back after the holidays, guess what? A lot of people are putting their house on the market. So the fact that it's only 86, in my opinion, is good. Last week it decreased for the first time in quite a while. We're still going to look this week. We're going to look like we've got we're in a buyer's market just because of the week, because of the low number. But I believe we're still in a balanced market, which is between 4 and 6 months. This is saying right now we're at 6.5, and that's just because of the low number. When we're normally in about the 400s, which is what's going to show up again in February, then we're going to look like we're, so for this month, we're probably going to look like we're in a buyer's market. But when you look at the whole big scheme of things, we're going to be looking like we're in a balanced market still. So of those 284 homes, there were 30 of them that were under 250, 17 between 250 and 300, 76 between 3 and 400, 48 between 400 and 500. There were 91 between 500 and a million, and 22 over a million. So the two ones that kind of surprised me this week in the number that sold are the ones between 4 and 500, which is 48. Usually that's right there with the number between 300 and 400. 250 to 300 is still low. That should be the same as under 250, which is 30. And then 500 to a million is at 91, which is higher, which is, I think, a good thing in regards to how all that's going to go down. So as I mentioned, 6.5 months of inventory overall, 4.71 under 250. And then because of that low number, it's at 7 months for 250 to 300. Then we go down to 5 months for 300 to 400, which is kind of normal and probably where we're at. Then all the rest of them are 7s or 8s between 400 and up to a million. So the thing that is that 400 to 500 had a low number of houses that sold this week, and that's just kind of an outlier, I believe. But we will look as time goes on and see what the bottom line is. Now, the list to ask price ratio is at 96.76, and basically we are in the 98s from 400 to a million. We're at 93.74 under 250, which is always an outlier, as well as the over a million at 94.81. And then we're at 96, between 250 and 400. So the houses are sitting on the market right now because of the amount of inventory that the average days to contract is 74 right now in regards to that. And that's what the scoop is. So when you come to condos, townhomes, and villas, there were 66 last week, which it was 104 the week before. Again, same kind of cyclical thing going on. But the median price increased to 277,000, which is right there in the range. And that inventory increased by 94 as well. The other one increased by like 80 some, I believe. So basically they increased the same thing as single family homes did. So of those 66 homes, 27 of them were under 250, 12 between 250 and 300, 16 between 300 and 400, 5 between 400 and 500, 6 between 500 and a million, and none of them over a million. So when you look at that, you start to see, wow, that doesn't feel like a lot in those particular price ranges. So you can kind of get an idea. There are a total of 4,000 listings that are on the market right now. And so that comes up to, for condos, townhomes, and villas this week, 14.25 months. So again, that's kind of, when you're looking at single family homes that we're looking at basic normal market at like 6, what it's saying for this week, even with the low amount of sales in the condos, townhomes, and villas, we're at 14.25 months. Now, the interesting thing, on this as you go across is that there's 13 months under 250, 12.65 between 250 and 300, 14.5 between 300 and 400, 23.26 based on the number that sold between 400 and 500, and 6 of them between 500 and a million, which makes 9.92 months. And then there are 23 over a million that are showing, that there's no percentage there because none of them sold. But in that 300 to 400, when you're looking at 14.5 months of inventory, there were 16 that sold and 1,000 on the market, just to give you an idea. Between 400 and 500, there were 5 that sold and 504 on the market. Under 250, there were 27 that sold, as I said, and 1627 in inventory. And then between 250 and 300, there were 12 that sold and 658 on the market. So you can see that where it looks like, oh my gosh, we've got a lot of inventory there. And that absolutely is kind of, what the bottom line is when we're looking at things. Like the list to sale price ratio is still at 96.21. Under 250 was at 94.73. Then we were at 97 all the way across until you get to 500, and that was at 94.7. So basically pricing is very much of a key item when it comes to this. They're an average of 119 days on the market is what it comes down to. But basically, when you're looking at these stats, the interesting thing to me is that really pricing your property correctly is one thing, but you definitely have to stand out. For example, if you are just looking at, say, we're looking at that 250 to 300, that there were a total of 12 properties that sold and 658 on the market. That's a lot of houses for people to pick from. So when you just put your house out there and you price it where you think you're going to get it, and then you don't have anybody show up and you go, what happened? basically that's what's going on, is that there is enough choices out there that you really have to stand out. And so you have to make sure that, that you're doing things differently, not better, but differently than anybody else in order to get the eyeballs on your property in this market. And we definitely do that. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but I'm going to go into the December uh, uh, stats. I'm so sorry. We're going to go into the December stats when I get back here, so that we can make sure that we're looking at the big picture and not this one particular week. Now, the challenge that I have with the overall stats is that they've got everything clumped together. So basically, when you're looking at the single family homes versus you're looking at the condos, townhomes, and villas, when you clump everything together, it's gonna make it look a lot different. But I'll go through that next when we're talking in the next couple of seconds, and then we'll get some more clarity on that. So if in order for you to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to go over the stats for basically the year, because the stats just came out actually on Friday, a couple days ago, for the year of 2025. So it came out for December. So we're going to compare December of 2025 to December 2024 and everything in between and all of that kind of good stuff. And so I'm not just going to talk about stats this whole show, but I just wanted to bring this up because I think this is very interesting. And when you look at it, so when you're looking at the inventory and like I said in the last segment, my biggest pet peeve on here is that when we're looking at the weekly reports, we're able to break it down between condos, townhomes, and villas and single family homes. And here everything is all clumped together. And so when you've got the majority of the houses that are the things that are selling are houses, individual single family homes, but you also have the condos, townhomes, and villas that really make a big difference. And the thing that you need to be aware of as a consumer when you're looking at that is that basically when it comes down to it is that you are, it emphasizes how you have to look at a particular neighborhood. You have to look at a particular size of a home within that neighborhood. Maybe it's a school district, maybe it's a zip code or something like that you're going to look at, but real estate is very local. So when you hear things on the news and they're saying that nationally this is happening and all of that kind of good stuff, and they're taking the stats and making them, kind of wild to match their story, basically when it comes down to it, real estate is extremely local. So like for these condos that we were talking about, that there's, a year or even up to almost 2 years of inventory. If you just looked at it this week for a particular price range, you have to look at what's going on in that development, what you can do about it, if there's anything that you can do to stand out. So like I was telling somebody, if there's 15 houses on the market or condos on the market in your development, and you're one of them, the average person's going to look at maybe 6 to 8 to 10. And so they're not going to look at all 20 of them. So you can have the best property there, and it might be worth more money in your opinion than the next guy. But the bottom line is that if people don't ever even come in to see it, you're not going to sell it. And so that's one of the main things that really, dictates sometimes price when people are looking at it and they go, hey, I've got these 10, there's 15 of them here in this development. 10 of them are sitting at, say, 300. And then we've got this other one that looks really nice, but it's at 350. Well, they're going to go, I can get all these at 300. I could spend that 50,000 and make it the way I like it, and it's going to be great. And I can find one that's like almost as good the way that it looks in the pictures. So they're never even going to go look at that 350 property, or maybe it's even just 320 or 310. It's just going to be that little bit above the price range that they're going to say, hey, I'm not going to, go look at it. So that's where price becomes so critical in this market, especially. And you have to look at the whole big picture. And even if it's not necessarily in your development, you have to look at what's going on around there of what people are looking at. If there aren't that many things, going in your particular development, but it might be that they're all around. Like, for example, there's an area that I'm thinking of that they have like 5 condo associations within, I would say, a quarter mile of each other. They're just all different developments. They kind of surround each other and kind of work together. They actually have one amenity for all 5 of them. And so the one that owns it, gets paid by the other ones to use their amenities, which is a pickleball court, tennis court, a pool, a park area, gazebo, all of that kind of stuff. And they all use that stuff, but the other associations pay this one. So you have to look at all of those combined to see, really when people are looking at it, they don't necessarily realize that the one is paying that everybody's paying the one. And so they have lower condo fees, but people don't necessarily know why and know that, that's the way it's going to stay and all of that kind of good stuff. So you have to really look at it and see, what's the best situation and everything for everybody out there. But getting into that December 2025 stats that, like I said, just came out Friday, in inventory in 2025 on overall is 11,389. In 2024, it was 10,049. So that's an increase of 13.3%. So if anything has happened since the interest rates have gone up several years ago now, and I'd have to look back and see exactly when that happened, but basically that's where our inventory started climbing. We were at a half a month of inventory, and that is not the case now. We're much higher, and I'll get into exactly how much in a little bit. And then when we look at the number of closed sales in 2025, in December, we had 2,182. In 2024, we had 2,154. So it's a 1.3% increase if you look at it that way. But really, the numbers are pretty similar, in my opinion, and really not too much of a change. The average price in 2025 in December was $482,267, and in 2024 was $464,525. So that's an increase if you're looking at the average of 3.8%. So that's probably where everybody's going to go with the stats saying, hey, the prices went up 3.8% on the average price. But if you look at the median price, it was $380,313. And in 2025, and in 2024, it was 380,000. So that basically, in my opinion, shows that it was flat, right? That it stayed pretty much the same. The average days on the market in 2025 was 78 and 68 in 24. So that increased, but that goes right along with the inventory. Now that went up 14.7 and the inventory went up 13.3. So really not a big surprise there. And so the months of supply in 2025, based on the sales there, was 5.22 and it was 4.67 in 2024. So both of them are considered a normal market, but the months of supply went up 11.9%, which it went 13.3 in the total number. So basically you can see that, it's like, in my opinion, when we're looking at that median price, which is what we look at every week when we're looking at the weekly stats, has stayed very consistent year over year. Now, there was a little bit of change from November, and basically in November we were at, our median price was at 385, which it's at 380, 313. So that's down 1%. But if you look at overall year over year and all of that kind of good stuff, we're basically, sitting pretty much the same. Now, the interesting thing is the average price from November to 2020, November to December of 2025, and the average price, as I said, was 482,267. And in November 2025, it was 467. So that went up 3.1% from year over year. So it's interesting because you can really take the stats and take them in whatever way that you want to. And then that makes a difference in regards to what's going on and how you look at things and all of that kind of good stuff. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. To discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So a couple of other things that I wanted to point out from now to a year ago is the interest rate is one thing that is improving. In December of 2025, basically it was 6.04 on average. In December of that was 25. In 24, it was 6.53. So basically it's gone down about a half a point. When you look at the interest rate over the year, when it was, this report goes back to July of 24. So it was at 6.65 then. Then it went to 6.09. 5.89 was September of 24. Then it went back up to 6.53 in December. Then January went up to 6.85. February 6.69. March 6.55, April 6.64, May was 6.78, June was 6.68, 6.46 in July, 6.35 in August, 6.05 in September, 6.02 in October, 6.05 in November, and 6.04 in December. So we've kind of stabilized, it looks like, at least for the last few months, for the last 4 months, that we've been right at 6.05 to 6.02 is the lowest that we had in October. So when it gets down to about 5 is when they feel like the market will really kind of take off. And as if you notice, if you look around, and a lot of builders offer 5% interest rate because they know that's where they can sell the properties. That's where they get affordable for people. And so basically that's one thing that you definitely, need to know and look at, and all that kind of good stuff in regards to, what's happening and all of that kind of good stuff. Interesting things, in my opinion. I love looking at this stuff. And again, this is overall, not split out, but in this show goes back to 2023, that we had approximately 3.9 months of inventory in 2023. In 24, we had 4.87, and in 25, we had 5.22. So that's always interesting to me to look at, and the inventory has just kind of continued to go there. When you look at the I'm going to look at the total number of properties that sold, and basically in 23 there were 1,982. 24 there's 2,154, and 25 2,182. Pretty consistent. But back in the day when the interest rate was at 3%, we had about double of what we had going on. So that's also interesting to look at, and all of that kind of good stuff. When we're looking at the median price in 23, it was 367,250. 24, like I mentioned, is 380 across 380,000, and then 25 is 383,13. So when you're looking at the average price, it was 458.42 in 23. then it went to 464, 525 in 24, and now it's at 482, 267. So it went up 3% from 23 to 24 and 3.8% from 24 to 25. So obviously, I'm sure that we've got the annual stats that I could get you there, looking year over year and all that kind of stuff. That's looking at the month year over year, but it kind of tells the story, obviously, in regards to what's going on and all of that kind of good stuff. And it's like, I apologize if you're not really into stats, but basically, I just really enjoy looking at that to really get a good feel in regards to what's going on in the market. And I think that as a consumer, it's like if you really know what's going on in the market, it definitely helps you going in with your game plan of, am I going to be able to offer less on this house and get it? Or, how do I really navigate that? And what really is going on out there with that? If when you're pricing the property, you can look at that as well and see kind of what the scoop is. And basically, you only need one person to buy your house when it comes down to it. But how many people are in the market looking? How many people can afford that house? How many people are, making those decisions in regards to buying that house? And I always find it fascinating that on the lower end and the higher end is where the most negotiating room is. And they're rare, right? The houses are rare in regards to the number that are out there, but it's always interesting the people that are buying them too. When you're looking at the median price of a house is 420 some thousand that we were looking at, I believe, today. And I've said a lot of numbers, so I don't remember exactly. But when you're looking at basically what and then we looked at the amount that the under 250 are selling for. So my point is, if the median house is at 429 or 430, somewhere around there, and you're buying a house under 250, that's quite a bit less than the median price home. And so it might be a little bit smaller and everything like that. It might be in an area that's a little bit less desirable that not as many people want, but more than likely it's in a condition that might need some repairs. So if you've got people coming in and buying them that are going to be fixing it up and then selling it again or something like that, you're going to find that kind of a sale going on. And so basically you have to be aware in regards to what's happening. And so really, someone like me that really studies the market a lot to figure out what's happening, what's going on out there, definitely helps my buyers and sellers to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward. Number one, that we're doing the right thing in order to make things happen. And that's absolutely, what we do. And so it comes down to really, like I said, putting your best foot forward, looking at all of the stats, everything that's out there to make sure that you know absolutely what's going on, what's your best bet for now, for the future, all of that kind of good stuff in regards to what's going on. And, if you are finding a house that's priced a lot lower than the others in the neighborhood, generally they're going to get a lot of people that are going to look at it and you're going to get multiple offers on it. The more in disrepair it's in, you're not necessarily, you're going to, you might have less people that are doing it because there are more people that are looking for it. But I am aware of, I would say probably about 150 investors that call me or text me consistently. Hey, I want to buy another 2 houses this month. Do you have anything that's not on the market? Because they've looked at everything that they can see on the market to see, that wants a quick sale or something like that. So there's a lot of people out there looking for that kind of property that has that value in it when you do the fix-ups to it. That's going to make a difference. And then it's the complete opposite when you come to the higher end. You think, well, a house over $1 million, that's not going to need a lot of repairs, and generally it does not. But what it does have it does have a discerning buyer. It has somebody that wants to come in there and that wants to do something different, with that particular property. They want to make it their own. It's like so maybe it just has, new flooring or something like that, but they want to make it their own. They want to make it the style that they want to have it. Maybe it has tile and they want to make it hardwood, or something like that they're going to come in and they're going to spend quite a bit of money on upgrading the house to their liking. And so it probably has good bones, but they're going to do something to it. For example, I've got somebody right now that's buying a house in the almost 900,000 range. And basically what they're doing is that they found a house that they like. And one of the things that they think on the main floor is that the room that it's got, it's got a pretty small family room on the first floor. On the second floor, this is a pretty decent sized house. It's over 5,000 square feet. And on the second floor, they've got a big, game room. It's got a media room. It's got, 6 bedrooms up there. It's got a primary bedroom and bath. And then it's got some en suites and that kind of thing too. And then on the main floor, they've got 2 more bedrooms, and it's got, another primary suite, and then it's got another bathroom as well. So what they're looking at doing is the primary suite that's downstairs, that is right there by the, by the family room, is that they're actually going to take out that wall and make that primary suite part of the family room, which would be much more appropriate for the house. Then that primary bathroom, what they're going to do is they're going to, take out the tub and a couple of things like that. They're still going to still leave the bathroom there, but they're going to make part of that primary bathroom into an office, for one of the this for the wife, and then there's another office for the husband. So basically they're going to do that. So basically when it comes into it and they're looking at it, that it's like most people would look at that house and they would say there's too many, it just doesn't match. It's got 5,000 square feet, but the family room where you're going to entertain everybody is pretty small, and it really is. And so basically, they've figured out a way to make it different. So obviously when they're offering money on that house, they're offering less because of the things they want to do to the house to keep the value at where it's at and everything like that. And that's a flaw in the house that is causing it to not be sold at this point in time. So they're going in to renovate it and everything like that. And so that's basically what the bottom line is. So you're going to find those kinds of things in the $1 million+ range in regards to what happens. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and I'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So there was a study that came out that I find really interesting, and it says that buying in January could save you big money. So if there's a strategy that could potentially cut someone's cost by $23,000 on average, would that be something that you would consider? So it talks about basically that it was a study that was done by LendingTree, and it said that you can save $23,000 by purchasing in January rather than waiting until May on a 1,500 square foot home. And so basically, when you're looking at that, it's because they're saying, first of all, that you're going to have more negotiating power and all of that kind of stuff. And that is true. There are more people that are out in May when school gets out. There are more people that are looking at getting moved before the school year starts again. And so if they want to make a change, that's when a lot of the market heats up. So basically that they're saying that that now is a good time for you to go ahead and purchase a home if you want to have some savings. And I would agree with that, that when you look at that, that would be basically a good thing for you to consider. Excuse me, because basically when it comes down to it, there are just more people looking at that time of year. You know, it's so funny, and Orlando is pretty consistent, but like I said, January and February are kind of some of our lowest months in regards to the number of properties that are being sold. And so as a result of that, you know, there are people that will discount and that kind of thing at this time of year. So it's a good time to at least look at it and all of that kind of good stuff. And you might be thinking, but Laura, you said earlier in the show that basically, you know, when interest rates go down, and you do expect that they're going to go down this year, that's going to make a big difference and everything too. Well, we always come down to that when I'm advising people are looking at that, you really want to look at what you want to get now in a house. And if you can get yourself into that house now, and then when the interest rates go down, you refinance, you're going to be way ahead of the game. You have to remember that when the interest rates were at 3%, back probably 5 years ago now, it basically comes down to that what we were at a half a month's inventory, which meant that anything that came on the market really sold very quickly. Sellers could put their price on it. They were going for well over asking price. All of those kinds of things were happening. So it came down to that, you know, as a buyer, you were really caught between a rock and a hard place. And the studies have come out that say, excuse me, my voice is a little froggy. The studies have come out and said that basically 80% 80% of the buyers at that point in time were not happy with their home purchase. Now, I personally didn't have that situation because we offer our buyback guarantee that if you're not satisfied with your home purchase in the first 18 months, we'll buy it back or sell it for free. So I was not in that situation where anybody that worked with me had that situation because I didn't have anybody that came back to me. But basically, the 80% of the buyers that bought at that point in time were just throwing numbers out there, not looking at houses going, oh, take it, because they were so desperate. And so as a result of that, you know, there were a lot of unhappy buyers. So right now, when the inventory is strong, when there's not that many people out there buying and sellers are willing to deal, it would be a great time for you to get in there. You can get seller concessions and all of those kinds of things as well that you can look at. So it'll be a good situation, you know, for you and your family to get, you know, the house of your dreams, and or maybe that house that you're moving up to might not be your dreams yet, but basically, you know, you can get that. And then when the interest rates go down, you can refinance, and you're going to already have the house and just make a lower payment on it. So it's a beautiful thing. So I do think that this is a great time of year to buy. And the studies back it up that said that, you know, in a 1,500 square foot house, that you would save $23,000 if buying it in January versus buying it in May, when the house's prices go up significantly. And that's not that the prices necessarily go up, you're just paying more for that house. And so basically, if we're looking at the interest rates are going down at that time, then that's just going to accelerate and make things even stronger. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. And it's crazy that the month of January is already, you know, more than halfway over. We're at January 18th, you know, right here. And so, you know, the month is just flying by, and 2026 is turning out to be a good month, a good year so far, a couple of weeks in, 3 weeks in. And so basically, when it comes down to it, if you have any questions, you know, I just encourage you to reach out, and we'd be happy to answer them, to just, you know, give you some advice in regards to what's going on, or answer your questions and everything. There's a lot of great opportunities out there when it comes to what's going on in the market, whether it be a new construction house, or whether it be a resale house, or, if you want to sell your own or whatever, looking at what's going on out there is absolutely, critical in arming you up to go out there and make the right decision when it comes to your house. And basically, it's the place you're going to live. You want to make a good decision and the right decision for you and your family, and that's what it's all about. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.